Gaza's entire population is suffering from severe levels of acute food insecurity. That from the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken as he begins a regional tour today with Arab foreign ministers and a top Palestinian official in Cairo. He continues to push for at least a pause in the fighting to try to get aid to those who desperately need it amid the ongoing threat of an attack on the city of Rafah. Well, International Affairs editor Philip Turle is joining me here on set now. Philip, it's not Blinken's first visit to the region by any means, is it? I mean, what chance really does he have of securing any kind of deal this time around?
Well, I imagine Antony Blinken's been saying to himself, this is like climbing up a hill backwards with a huge weight on my shoulders, but he's certainly going to carry on trying. This is the sixth visit that he's made to the region since the attacks of the 7th of October, and so far, still no sign of a ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip between Hamas and the Israeli Defense Forces. Still loads more misery for the civilian population there who've been displaced, and a lot of worry, as you were just saying, about increased levels of starvation and food insecurity. So I think after a visit to Saudi Arabia yesterday, where he has managed to talk to the Saudi authorities, the US is pushing them to strike up normalized relations with Israel. There's been a pledge amongst the Saudis to send $40 million to UNRWA, that's the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. These are the main points from yesterday. Hamas saying that the proposals that Israel has put forward for that ceasefire are still globally negative. I'll come back to that in a minute. Other points yesterday, Canada is to stop exporting arms to Israel, and the Israeli Defense Minister is to visit, that's Yoav Gallant, is to visit Washington next week. That's a visit that's been set up by Benjamin Netanyahu. The relationship between him and Joe Biden is not particularly good right now. He said that is out of respect for Joe Biden that he's sending his foreign minister there to talk to the US authorities, but still no real breakthrough on that ceasefire. And even though Hamas has come up with a proposal that it should be for 6 weeks and not an indefinite ceasefire, which is what it originally was calling for, they're still blaming Israel for not coming up with equivalent points that they can both move forward with. So negotiations carrying on in Qatar right now between the different sides, between Egypt, between Saudi Arabia, Hamas, and representatives from the Israelis, but still no real progress in trying to work out how and when that ceasefire is going to come into effect.
Yeah, I mean, the US doesn't seem to be making much progress either, does it, in talking to Israel directly? Joe Biden's calls for a ceasefire appear to be largely falling on deaf ears. Is there any sign at all at the moment, do you think, that Israel may not launch its attack on Rafah?
Well, there's a differing of points here. Now, the Israelis say they have to launch this offensive. This is Benjamin Netanyahu basically saying we have to launch this offensive because this is the only way we're going to wipe out Hamas completely. There are still 6 battalions of Hamas which are in Rafah. We will have to destroy those and also get hold of the last remaining leaders of Hamas who are hiding underground. The only way to do that is to send in ground forces. But we will make sure that the civilian population is evacuated. The US says, no, we have to find another way of doing it because you're going to risk too many lives by doing that. Now, the big development over the past 24 hours is a report that Antony Blinken, or an interview that Antony Blinken has done with a Saudi news agency, where he's announced that the US, for the first time, has put forward a resolution to the UN Security Council, which is going to be debated for an immediate ceasefire, and also for opening up the border to let more aid into the Gaza Strip. Now, remember, up until now, the US has so far voted against a ceasefire 3 times in the United Nations Security Council. So this is also calling for the release of all of the hostages. So that is quite a major development on the side of the US, which I think shows the actual irritation that there is in Washington, the growing frustration with Benjamin Netanyahu not agreeing to what the US is pushing for. Just to illustrate that, for example, when they talked to each other on Monday, the conversation between Benjamin Netanyahu on one side and Joe Biden on the other was the first phone conversation between the two leaders for 32 days. So that just goes to show that really they don't seem to have much to talk about, and that's why the two men haven't been communicating with each other directly. So there is some small progress, but we're still quite a long way off from any kind of concrete ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, which is what the US is now calling for, the letting in of humanitarian aid over the border from Rafah in southern Egypt Egypt and elsewhere in the Gaza Strip to feed all those people who are suffering from starvation, and any movement towards liberating those 130 hostages.
And all of this while hunger increases and the death toll in Gaza mounts as well.
Well, those figures, Stuart, make pretty depressing and horrific reading if you look at them. 1.5 million people displaced in the Gaza Strip, 31,490 people killed. That's the latest figure given by Hamas sources. And as you were just saying in your introduction, 100% in the Gaza Strip now suffering from food insecurity. There seems to be a feeling in the West Bank, and I think, in Israel and also in the United States, that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to push ahead with this because he doesn't want to give up right now because of the pressure he's under from his own far-right coalition to go ahead and destroy Hamas, and also the threat hanging over him if he is no longer prime minister with all these court cases that he could be facing. So that also explains why he's being so intransigent towards the United States and irritating Joe Biden so much.